There is a war, and most walk through it like it's a breeze. They smile on the outside, but inside they're bleeding from battles they can't explain. You're not losing your mind. You're under siege. When darkness surrounds you, it's not just bad luck. It's not just circumstance. No, there's an enemy that trembles when truth walks in. Demons are not scared of your education, your bank account, or your social status, but they are paralyzed by authority. There is a fear that comes like a storm without clouds, sudden and without warning. It enters not through the logic of the mind, but through the cracks in the soul, deep, invisible, and sharp. One moment you are fine walking through your day like normal, the next your chest tightens, your thoughts race, you feel a presence you cannot explain. It's not the fear of a barking dog or an oncoming car. It's deeper. It's the kind that makes no sense, yet feels as real as breath. This is not ordinary fear. This is spiritual sabotage. This is the kind of fear that doesn't knock, it breaks in. Uncontrollable fear is the thief of movement. It paralyzes not just the body but the decisions, the dreams, the destiny. You don't just pause, you freeze. Your plans fall apart, you start questioning everything. Confidence becomes confusion, boldness becomes hesitation, and in the quiet of your soul something starts whispering lies. You're not safe, you're not strong, you're not going to make it. These aren't your thoughts, they are seeds planted by something that feeds on fear, and the more you listen, the deeper the roots grow. When this kind of fear strikes, it doesn't just affect your emotions. It poisons your relationships. You become suspicious of good people, distant from those who love you. You hide, you shut down, you say you're just tired when really, you're being drained. You say I need space, but what you really need is freedom. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding the shadows that follow you. But the truth is, the fear that chokes your life isn't greater than the strength that lives inside of you. It only wins if you stop fighting. This fear is often the first sign of demonic pressure. When you're on the edge of breakthrough, of clarity, of purpose, that's when fear rises like a wall. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. The enemy doesn't attack what doesn't threaten him. He tries to freeze the very people that carry fire. If fear has been your silent companion, it's not proof of defeat, it's proof of potential. You were born to break what's trying to break you, but you can't conquer fear by pretending it's not there. You conquer it by facing it with authority. You don't need louder prayers, you need clearer identity. You don't need to scream at the dark, you need to stand in the light. Uncontrollable fear is real, but it's not unbreakable. It feeds on silence, isolation, and confusion. But when you begin to speak truth louder than fear, when you stop running and start resisting, everything shifts. You are not a victim of fear. You are a weapon against it. And once you see that, fear doesn't disappear, it flees. Toxic mental loops are like invisible chains, silent, slow, and suffocating. They don't scream, they whisper. And they don't start with catastrophe, they start with a single thought, a doubt, a lie, a what if, a maybe. And once it enters, it spirals, again and again. One thought becomes a sentence becomes a story becomes a belief, and before you know it, you're living inside a prison built from your own mind. Not because you're weak, but because something has hijacked your ability to see clearly. These mental loops are subtle assassins. They don't just attack your emotions. They target your identity. You start thinking you're not enough, that no one truly cares, that your best will never be good enough. And the more you repeat these thoughts, the more they embed themselves like vines wrapping around your soul. They steal your voice, they dilute your confidence. You stop trying not because you don't want to succeed, but because the voice in your head says you never will. There is a reason these loops are so powerful. They are reinforced by your silence. When you don't confront the lie, you begin to live with it. You wear it like a coat. You walk with it like a companion. It becomes the filter through which you see the world, and worse, yourself. And that's the goal of this mental warfare. Not just to make you feel defeated, but to convince you that you were born defeated. Once your identity is corrupted, your decisions follow, and slowly you begin to sabotage yourself. You'll notice it when you're trying to grow. You'll step out in courage only to hear that voice say, "Who do you think you are?" You'll feel joy, but then remember all the reasons you shouldn't. You'll start a new chapter, only to reread all your old pain. These loops aren't just memories, they're spiritual traps, and the longer you stay inside them, the harder it feels to escape. But hear this: feelings are not facts, and just because a thought is loud doesn't mean it's true. Most people fight these thoughts in silence, afraid that speaking them aloud will make them more real. But the opposite is true. What stays in the dark festers, what comes into the light breaks. These loops are parasites. They feed off shame, fear, and secrecy. But once you call them out, once you stop agreeing with the lies, their power crumbles. You're not insane. You're under attack, and the difference between bondage and freedom starts with recognition. You must remember, your mind is a battlefield, not a reflection of your worth. Toxic loops are not your identity, they are intrusions. You are not broken, you are being targeted, but you have more authority than you know. You don't overcome these thoughts by ignoring them. You override them. You replace every lie with truth. Not once, but again and again, until the new loop isn't one of fear but of fire. Until your mind no longer echoes defeat but power. You are not a slave to your thoughts. You are not doomed to relive the same cycle of self-doubt and despair. The loop can be broken, the pattern can end, and when it does, your vision returns. Your strength returns. You return. And the thoughts that once imprisoned you will become proof that you survived what was meant to destroy you. There are wounds the body carries that have no name, no medical label, no scientific explanation. You feel it before anyone else sees it. A sudden heaviness, a strange pressure, a fatigue that doesn't match your lifestyle. It comes quietly, slipping in through a crack that even rest can't seem to seal. You wake up tired. You eat well but feel drained. You try to explain it, but nothing makes sense. And after countless tests, appointments, and remedies, you're left with the same answer. We don't know what's wrong, but something is wrong. Deeply wrong. This is not ordinary sickness. This is not wear and tear or poor health habits. This is spiritual oppression manifesting through the physical. The unseen realm has touched your body with its icy fingers, weighing down your energy, choking your breath, stiffening your bones. It doesn't come to kill you immediately. It comes to wear you out, to grind you down slowly, to take away your fight, not with a weapon, but with exhaustion that defies logic. You were running with fire, and suddenly now you can barely crawl. This type of affliction is persistent and clever. It adapts. You treat one symptom and another appears. You feel better one day and worse the next. There is no rhythm, no pattern, just chaos. Your body becomes a battleground and your faith becomes the casualty, because when your strength leaves your flesh, it threatens to leave your spirit too. You begin to question not just your health, but your purpose. You wonder, why now? Why me? What is this? And that's the danger. When the pain is prolonged, the mind becomes vulnerable. What's worse is how alone you start to feel. You can't explain what's happening, so people stop asking. Friends offer surface-level sympathy. Doctors suggest rest or stress relief. You start to doubt your own reality, and slowly a fog creeps in, not just around your body, but around your soul. You stop expecting healing. You start adjusting your life to your limitations. But this is the trick of spiritual oppression. To make you live with what you were meant to drive out. Some of the greatest spiritual attacks don't come in nightmares. They come in slow, unshakable sickness, and they come because of what you carry. The enemy knows he can't stop your calling, so he tries to disable your vessel. He can't silence your voice, so he targets your breath. He can't touch your soul, so he wears out your flesh. This isn't just coincidence, it's warfare. And the longer you treat it only in the natural, the more it multiplies in the spiritual. You have to recognize when your pain is not just physical but prophetic, When your suffering is not just an issue, it's a sign, a signal that something unseen has declared war against your destiny. You cannot afford to accept what heaven never assigned to you, that lingering illness, that relentless fatigue, that unexplained heaviness. It's not yours. Stop claiming it. Stop owning it. It was never meant to stay, and it only lingers when it goes unchallenged. When the natural fails, the spiritual must rise. That means your strategy must change. You do not bow to the sickness, you confront it. Not just with pills, but with power. Not just with appointments, but with authority. You stand in the truth that your body is not a hotel for affliction, it is a temple. And temples are not playgrounds for darkness. They are dwelling places of strength, of purpose, of light. This is where most people give up, when the pain stays longer than expected. But what you endure is proof that you're a threat. The longer it stays, the more it exposes its desperation. Because what doesn't respond to medicine may just be waiting to respond to command. Speak to it, rebuke it, war against it. Declare that your body is not for rent, that every fiber of your being belongs to strength, not suffering. You don't need everyone to understand. You don't need everyone to believe you. You just need to stand up from within the storm, because sickness may have touched your flesh, but it cannot have your future. And the moment you recognize the oppression is not yours to carry, is the moment healing begins to stir beneath the surface. Let it rise. There is a pain that doesn't bleed, but it bruises. A wound that can't be stitched, but it throbs through your every thought. It's called shame, and shame is not loud. It's subtle. It slips in through memory. It hides in silence. It lingers in the words you never said and the apologies you never received. Guilt may knock once and leave, but shame moves in. It sets up camp and builds walls inside your soul, whispering over and over again, "You're not good enough. You never were. You never will be." At first it feels like a voice of honesty. It convinces you that it's keeping you humble, grounded, responsible. It wears the mask of morality. But what it really is, what it truly becomes, is a prison. Guilt is supposed to be a moment, a signal that something needs to be addressed. But when that moment is prolonged, when it loops endlessly with no resolution, it transforms. It no longer convicts, it condemns. This condemnation is not from truth. It's from distortion. It takes the facts of your past and twists them until all you see is failure. You begin to believe you are the sum of your worst moments, that every mistake defines your worth, that every flaw outweighs your future. It becomes harder to breathe in rooms full of joy because you don't think you deserve it. You withdraw. Not because you hate people, but because you're convinced they would hate you if they knew the real you. You try to make up for it, overworking, overgiving, overstretching. You say yes when you should say no. You carry other people's burdens while silently collapsing under your own, and still the voice says not enough. You pray harder, love deeper, sacrifice more, but nothing feels like it redeems what haunts you, because shame doesn't respond to good works. It feeds on your disbelief that you're worthy of love without earning it. Shame attaches itself to identity. It doesn't just say you failed, it says you are a failure. That shift is subtle but deadly, because when you internalize shame, you don't just believe bad things happened, you believe you are bad. So even when good things come your way, you push them away, sabotaging yourself without knowing why. It's not that you don't want love or success, it's that shame has convinced you you're disqualified from both. What's even worse is how normalized it becomes. You stop noticing it. You carry it like a second skin. You laugh with people while loathing yourself inside. You show up to life but never fully engage. You feel like an outsider in your own story, living under a constant audit of your worth. And the more you achieve, the more empty it feels, because nothing ever seems to erase what's underneath. People will tell you to let it go, but how do you let go of something that feels sewn into your identity? How do you heal from a voice that sounds just like your own? This is the genius of shame. It doesn't need to scream to control you. It just needs to sound familiar. It wants you to agree with it, to call it truth, to wear it like a name tag, because once you agree, you stop resisting. But there's something shame didn't count on, and that's your awakening. That moment when you begin to question the narrative, when you realize you are more than the things you regret, more than the pain you caused or the pain caused to you. There is power in the pause, in the moment you say, wait, what if I'm not the villain in every story? What if I'm more than this guilt? That's where the shift begins. Freedom doesn't come by pretending it didn't happen. It comes by declaring that what happened no longer defines who you are. Guilt has a role, to bring awareness, but after that it must move. If it stays, it turns toxic. You are not obligated to live in a courtroom of self-judgment forever. You've served the sentence long enough. Now it's time to walk out of the prison that was never meant to hold you this long. There is a difference between remorse and punishment, between humility and self-hate. Stop punishing yourself for being human. Stop bowing to a past version of yourself who didn't know what you know now. Growth is not perfection, healing is not linear, and forgiveness is not a luxury, it is a weapon. One you must learn to use on yourself, not just others. You'll know you're breaking free when the voices start to get quieter. When you stop replaying every wrong, when you stop bracing for rejection before you even enter the room. You'll feel it when joy feels less foreign, when peace becomes less of a visitor and more of a resident. That's not denial, that's recovery. That's rewriting your inner dialogue. There is still time to forgive yourself, to release the weight, to step out from under the judgment that's been eating at your soul. You are not too broken, you are not too far gone, you are not beyond repair, you are simply someone who has been lied to for too long, and the truth is, you're still here. And that in itself is proof that shame has not won, because if it had its way you wouldn't still be standing, but you are, and that means the story isn't over. Not by a long shot.